All right. Well, welcome to the show. My opening question tends to be: what's your why for competing in HYROX and doing all the sport that you do? Is there a motivator behind it for you?
Um, well, yeah, to also give a little bit my background, I started when I did a lot of different sports, but when I was 16, I did triathlon and I really enjoyed that. But at the same time, I also did like strength work in the gym. So in the winter period, I often did a lot of strength, and in the summer, I did triathlon, and I really enjoyed both. So the strength and the conditioning. And I'm also really competitive. So in HYROX, I found a sport where I can combine all those different things. So that's the reason I enjoy competing in HYROX so much.
Okay. Was the strength work to support the triathlon work, or you just happen to enjoy both of them?
No, to be honest, not. So it was really like going for the chest and the shoulders and going for the pump. That did change a little bit after a few years. So I think when I was like 20, I never been like a really, really good triathlete, but I was quite decent. So in the last years of my triathlon career, to put it that way, I did do it a little bit more functional, but never 100% for the triathlon alone.
Okay. How old are you now? Can I ask?
27.
Okay. Okay. And so, like, triathlon is your main background, is it, or were you doing anything else?
Yeah, so I started as a child. I did athletics. And when you're really young in the Netherlands, you do then all kinds of different stuff. So running and sprinting and the high jump. And we were not throwing the javelin, but we were throwing balls at that age. So a lot of different things. And then I also did football or soccer, depending on where you're from, for a couple of years. But then when I was uh 14, 15, I started into the gym, and when I was 16, started with triathlon.
Okay, okay, okay. And what do you do for work now? Am I right in thinking you work with professional athletes?
Yeah, I work as a strength and conditioning coach for the Dutch Olympic team. And the way that works over there is that, yeah, I'm officially at a place called Papendal, and that's the biggest Olympic training facility in the Netherlands. I have a contract over there, and a sporting union can go to Papendal and say, like, we want to do our training sessions here, and we want to be supported by a food expert and a strength and conditioning expert and sports scientists, and then have my contract at Papendal, and then I have different sports where I now do the strength and conditioning, and that is for Paralympic cycling, and there I only focus on really the strength work. So the coaches are for the cycling part. I have the talent team speed skating. So those are athletes between 16 and 19 years old. And that's again only the strength work. And I also do a couple of hours at the Olympic beach volleyball program. And there, because that's of course a little bit a different sport, because those other two are endurance sports. So with the beach volleyball, it is the strength work, but there we also do the conditioning part because the head coaches there are mainly responsible for the ball sessions. So the function of a strength and conditioning coach, it differs a little bit between the different sports. When you have more team sport, the coach also does conditioning. But when you do an endurance sport, the S&C coach mostly does only the strength work.
Okay, cool. And did you previously work at Feyenoord as well?
I did my internship over there.
Right.
So I studied human movement sciences, and in during my masters, I did an internship of 9 months at Feyenoord, but there it was mostly at the science department, and I was helping with um, yeah the local position measurement system it's called, and that's actually just during the training sessions and the games they have they have a system where they measured all the distances that they ran and also with what kind of speed. So it's also get like above 25 kilometers an hour and between 20 and 25 and stuff like that. and I helped with collecting that data and putting it into a report so that the physical trainer could see what all the players are doing on the field.
Okay, interesting. So having worked, like I like to get into the mindset sometimes on these chats, but like having worked with Olympians and professional football players and yourself and other athletes around HYROX, is there anything like from a mentality perspective or the way that they approach sport that you think does differentiate them from your regular athlete?
Um, was pretty funny. To be honest, at Feyenoord, I didn't spoke with the athletes that much because there the science is really like the office upstairs and nobody knows what they're doing. Um, but at Papendal, with the Olympians, I actually, in terms of mindset, it's actually quite similar to a lot of the triathletes and also the HYROX athletes that I know. And I think like the cool thing about also triathlon and also HYROX is of course growing now really fast, but it started as quite a small sport, and triathlon had that as well. So the people who are there are really there because they're really passionate about the sport, and that's something I see with all the Olympic athletes as well, that they are really really passionate about what they do. So that's like the biggest thing that I'm noticing, that actually the mindset isn't really that different at all, to be honest.
Okay, okay, and then so like you discovered HYROX,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah,
now a three-time age group world champion.
yeah.
Um, and then recently, like we're speaking just after Barcelona, where you've just finished second at the Last Chance Qualifier, uh, qualifying you for the Elite 15 in Chicago, I should say. Did you know that you had that performance in you? Did you think you could qualify?
To be honest, I surprised myself a little bit with my performance in Barcelona. Like, um, especially at the World Championships in Nice, I had a really good performance, and my time wasn't even that fast, but the course wasn't really fast. So I think that's I put that into perspective a little bit, but I I hope to be like, time always is difficult, but I hope to be able to go like sub 58. But to go from like 59:10 to 56:30 something, that's a really big jump. Um, and I had like in my head like, this is the potential I have in my body, but I didn't expect it to come already in Barcelona.
Okay, okay. I have to, but did you like? I watched someone's live stream of you in Paris the week before, where you did the doubles,
Yeah.
and you did look incredibly strong on the running in particular.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
did you at that point maybe think like Barcelona, you could do it in Barcelona, or still not necessarily?
Um, Not necessarily. I agree with you because that's how I felt in Paris as well, especially with the running. I felt like unbeatable. It was like uh yeah, I really I felt even stronger in Paris than in Barcelona, to be honest. But I didn't do a pro race for quite a long time, so I was a little bit unsure how that performance in Paris would work out in Barcelona, but it did increase my confidence a lot.
Okay, I was going to ask you about like that is your first pro race for quite a long time. I'm not sure how long it is, but that was like your first solo race really for quite a while. What was the reason for that?
Yeah, my last solo race, I think, was like the end of October or November, maybe the beginning of November. So that's already like almost 7 months ago, 6, 7 months. And the reason was, after Nice, there I had the idea, okay, I can really, if I make just one more step, I'm able to go with the elites. Um, so I started training, but I got into like, I made some mistakes, I think, but also like my mindset, I became like hyper focused, and when anything went wrong, then I was like, shit, now I won't be able to make it anymore, and yeah, I can better go to the next race and try over there. Um, so yeah, those races in October and November really didn't go as planned, and then after the race in Paris in October, like in 2024, I really decided, okay, this is not gonna work like this. So I need to take a step back and look at my training and especially also my mindset and build back from the ground up again. And I did that by going on holiday and just I did a lot of training over there, but every day I just was like, okay, today I want to cycle, so I'm hopping on the bike, and today I want to swim, so I go to this. So there I made sure that I had fun in training. And after that, I started with like some doubles with friends just for fun. And then with a friend who is a little bit fitter. So it's still for fun, but already a little bit faster. And then I did an open and then I did the pro with the pro doubles with Cherry. So, um, also in like my racing, I started from the bottom again and building slowly up. So I try to take that fun with me from the first races and increase my confidence after each race, and that's how I build up to Barcelona.
Okay, okay. So you think like you said, you made some mistakes, and there was the mental side. Is it that you were a little bit too all in, like a little bit too focused on your performance, and the enjoyment had been lost?
Yeah, exactly. That it was in terms of mindset what I did wrong, I think. And with the training side, I think I did too much intervals at race pace. And yeah, HYROX is a very demanding sport, so I think because I did too much of those intervals, um, that I maybe even overtrained. I definitely wasn't overtrained, but because it's not that I need to lay in bed for 6 months before I was able to do something, but I did think that I did too much of that work, and that therefore I was too fatigued at the races.
Okay, it's something we spoke about with Steve Magnus on here recently about like just being like you need to be you sort of need to be all in, but it's possible to be too much all in, and like you need other things going on in your life as well to almost take away like the pressure of the performance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I wanted to ask in Barcelona, was the sleds look like they were particularly hard, uh, especially your lane? Was it was it a struggle in Barcelona?
Yeah, the sleds were pretty tough, but and especially with the push, I took a little bit of risk. In the sense that you have of course an idea like how do you want to feel during the push, and uh, normally I do like half of a lane and then take a few seconds rest and then another half of a lane. But I was noticing like, oh, it's pretty heavy. But I'm gonna stick to my plan with half of a lane as long as possible. And my last lane, I took an extra rest, but there I went a little bit deeper than I was planning beforehand. But and Charlie on the lane next to me was going really fast, so I I did notice that I was like, "Okay, he's going pretty fast and I'm having a tough time," but I was also looking around and I could see that other people also were having it quite tough. And then after the push, I had like a half of a round where I struggled a little bit with the running, but after that, I noticed that I was getting into my stride again. And then with the pull again was pretty heavy, but I came, together with Charlie and Lucas. I think we were like almost simultaneously at the sled pull, and I had a. It was heavy again, but I was noticing that I was pulling it faster than those guys, and I still felt quite comfortable with my pace. So especially the pull, it was still heavy, but because I was getting a gap there and going into the front, it felt really good, to be honest.
Okay, okay, cool. Can we just talk about the Paris race as well?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
After talking about the success of Barcelona, so in Paris, initially it looked like you'd finished third,
Yeah.
and then ultimately someone in the later wave beat you, knocking you out of that elite 15 qualification. Uh, Presumably that was quite a disappointment.
Yeah. It definitely was. First, we were really happy, and we actually came into the wall ball station first. And for both myself and for Cherry, wall balls is not our strongest exercise, but we got that time like 25 no reps because we weren't going deep enough. And personally, I didn't fully agree with that all the time, to be honest. Uh, but everybody was judged really strict. So that's yeah, if everybody's just really strict, then it's of course a different story. But we both noticed that we were getting stressed because we had so many no reps. So when we crossed the finish line, we were really happy that we were third and that we could resume in the top 3 spot. And then yeah, so and the hall is of course very crowded and loud, so we wanted to go outside, and we went into Paris and we drank some coffee and we had something to eat, and then we were walking through the city, and then suddenly like, shit, somebody got on the right time, and then uh you we were walking very disillusionated through the city from that point on. um and to be honest, we were both still really happy with how we performed, especially up until the wall walls. But yeah, that we lost that spot was a big blow.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. But I mean, we this episode will be out after London, but you're going back to London, or you're going to London to try for it again, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. We first, Cherry and I first said to each other, we're only gonna try Paris. But after the way it ended, and I was already thinking like, yeah, if it's up to me, we also go to London. But I don't think Cherry wants to do that. But then he was starting about it, so I think we both noticed about each other that we actually wanted to go to London. So this coming Monday, we will give it another shot.
Okay, okay. Is wall balls something that you're working on, that you feel you need to work on?
Yeah, yeah, no, already worked on it a lot. So that was one of the reasons I was actually quite surprised that we were getting so many no reps. And I know for myself that I don't have the prettiest form. So yeah, because I have quite long limbs, I have quite a forward lean. Also, when I do like a regular back squat, and I take that form with me with the wall balls. But I'm now, you saw that also in Barcelona. I had like one rest of like 2 seconds, and that was already at the end where I knew that I was getting second, but I had like two no reps because I didn't my accuracy wasn't well enough. So I thought, okay, I take 2 seconds of rest. But yeah, I'm now at a point where I think that I'm, if I really need to, that I can do them unbroken. So that's already a big first step. But now I just need to work on getting them faster. One thing, because both the lunges and the wall balls are not my strongest exercises, but when I do those a lot, my knee tendons are getting on the edge a little bit. So I cannot train them as much as I want to, but I still notice that that they can improve with the amount of reps I do them now weekly.
Yeah. You're talking my language now. I've got bad knees at the moment whenever I do wall
Yeah,
balls. So yeah, yeah. And also like my personal feeling, and to be fair, I've not judged much at all, but my personal feeling is that when someone's wall ball technique isn't the prettiest and they have that forward lean, I think they do sometimes unfairly get penalized for lack of depth,
yeah,
almost because it doesn't look that pretty, but there
yeah,
is depth in there. And I've seen like
yeah,
people share on social media before as well, like, he's not getting depth there, and I think he actually is, but it's just like a forward lean as well.
yeah, and that's like a lot of the judges at HYROX are of course volunteers, and so you cannot always expect from those that they know exactly how a squat works and what under parallel exactly is. So maybe sometimes they have like a certain image in their head, and when somebody doesn't mimic that image, then they think like, oh, it's a no rep. Um, so HYROX is doing a lot of things well, and you can see every year the quality is improving. But if it's up to me, that would be something that can be improved further. Yeah.
Mhm. I've been told to. We touched on that. Like, you're 3 times age group world champion. I've been told to ask you about the name. Is it the name on your T-shirt at the Manchester World Championships?
Yeah. What about it?
I don't know. I was told there's a story behind it, and I should ask you about it.
I I don't know if I don't know if I have it here, but it's like at Manchester, I suddenly, like a few weeks in front, I got like an email like, is it true that this is your last name? And in case it's not your last name, then please fill it in, because then we're gonna put it on the t-shirt. And I just was having a weird day, and um So I came home and I was like, no, this is not my last name. This is my last name. And then I filled in, yeah, it's Dutch. It's je moeder. And that's Dutch for your mom. So now I have like, and the only thing is they put like they put it in one word. So it's like two words, but they put it in one word. But I have now a world champions T-shirt with je moeder on it. So that's a legendary T-shirt in my gym at the moment.
Love it, love it. And while we're talking about like world champs and elite 15 and so on, you were part of the Dutch team at the Nice relay world championships as well.
Yeah.
Have you heard? Is that the plan again this time round? Have you heard yet, or you don't
Uh,
know?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but from HYROX Benelux, I did get the message like, "Do you want to be captain again?" But after that, I said like, "Yes, of course." But after that, I haven't heard anything anymore. So maybe they saw the LCQ and went with Emily now. But
Of course, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
but I'm available and I really want to. So yeah, we will see.
Okay. If you are captain, will you approach like team selection differently like this time round? Will you like go for more specialists in certain stations? Will you go for the fastest HYROX athlete? Have you like would there be a different approach based on what you learned last time?
Yeah, last time I thought it would be really nice also to have like some traction on social media and stuff to put it out like a certain race, like hey, send in yourself running a kilometer and doing an exercise and send it to me. And it's also a way of showing that you really want to be in the team because then you do like an effort to show that you want to be in the team. But this year I will do it differently and just pick the four people which I think will be the fastest. So this year will be more about performance and less about other stuff. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Let's talk about your training a little bit. We'll start with on the running side of things because, like I said, I thought that looked particularly impressive in the last two races I've seen you in. So what's the structure of your running training? And you sort of touched on maybe previously you were doing too much at race pace. So have
Yeah.
is there a lot of slower stuff in there now?
Yeah, and like that that sessions on race pace, that was more like HYROX work, and that of course also was running, but I mainly mean there all the exercises. Um and actually, to be honest, I don't even run that much if you compare it to other elite athletes, but I think the reason is for that because I have that track and field background and also the triathlon background, so I run already for a really long time. So my average um I think I run like 70 kilometers a week now. And I think of all those kilometers, only one session now is like a harder run where I pick up the pace and I do some longer intervals like 4 times 8 minutes, 4 times 10 minutes, sometimes even 2 times 20 minutes. That kind of work. Um, and all the other stuff, all the other running is now I actually easy pace where I finish with some strides sometimes. So that's like 5 times 100 meters at like 250, 240 pace. And then of course you have your HYROX circuit, and there usually I have one I have two training sessions, HYROX workout sessions where I do some running, and then one I do slow running and the exercise now a little bit faster, and the other time in the week I do a HYROX circuit with a little bit of faster running, but I do the exercises a little bit slower. So that's how I structure my running at this moment.
Okay. So, but quite a high percentage is slower, like zone two stuff, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, most of it. Yeah. And maybe good to know is that I also still cycle a lot.
Mm.
So it's not running, but yeah, I still, especially in like January and February, was really like 10, sometimes even 12 hours of cycling. Now it's a little bit less because you want to be more specific to the important races. But I think I still do like 6 to 8 hours of cycling weekly now. So that's still quite a lot.
Okay, and that's all pretty slow stuff as
Yeah,
well, yeah.
that's only slow. Yeah, sometimes maybe a sprint when I'm cycling with a friend, but it should be all slow.
Do you think that's translated well to sled work, like the sled pushing? Do you feel like the biking helps you there or not necessarily?
Well, maybe like the Netherlands, especially where I live, is quite flat. But when you go like up into the mountains, then it becomes a different story. And I think there it can really help when you go uphill and you do have that tension the whole time on your legs. But in the area I live, to be honest, not that much. No.
No. Okay. Where do you think you're at, like running wise, for a 5K or 10K or half marathon or whatever? Do you know?
Um, well, the last time that was already in November, I did like a 33:40 on the 10K. And that's actually quite painful because my PR that's already like 1.5 years ago on the 5K is 16 minutes and 3 seconds. So that's something that needs to go under the 16 minutes. And if I'm being really honest, I think if I would run a 5K now, that I could run it under the 16 minutes.
Okay.
And I'm actually considering doing half a marathon in the summer, and then my goal would be to go under 1:15, which I also think is quite realistic.
Okay. Okay. And then in terms of like your total training volume, like there's quite a lot of just work purely on the bike there, but like how
Yeah.
many hours do you think you're doing a week?
Yeah, like from January to April, it really was like 20 was the average. So 18 on the little bit of easier weeks, and even 22, 23 on the heavier weeks. And then when I was tapering for Paris and Barcelona, it was more like 13, 14 hours, something in that, something around there.
Okay.
So that's also actually it was quite funny because in October I had the idea that I was a little bit too fatigued, and one of the things I changed is that I did more hours. So that's maybe a little bit weird, but yeah, I started making more hours.
So more volume, less intensity. Is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah,
Okay. All right. You wrote an article for us some time ago now
yeah,
on
yeah,
rockslife.com about the interference effect.
yeah,
Like, and funnily enough, I've talked about that with Gomar, the host, as well, which is on the episode that came out today as we record this. But is that something that you continue to take into consideration in your training a lot? Like, is it like you
yeah.
like deliberately separating like endurance work and strength work as much as possible?
Yeah, and that's actually because that's again, especially in that period like January and February, where I really focused on trying to separate that as much as possible. Because when you're training for HYROX, it will always happen. So that's also an addition you wanted to put in yourself, which I think is a really good addition at the end. Like, don't be too afraid to train in a way where you do have some kind of interference effect, because it's a part of HYROX. Um, but especially in January and February, I try to do my easy endurance and my strength in such a way that they don't take away too much from each other. And to be really honest, because in that article we spoke about the interference effect, that you have like the acute effect and the chronic effect. And from those two, I focus the most on the acute effect, because I think the chronic effect is actually quite limited, to be honest. Don't have any science to back me up, but that's just my personal opinion. But the acute effect, of course, is really there. If you do like, if you go run like 15 kilometers, then you cannot do a back squat as much as you would if you were like totally rested. So that's something I really take into account, but that chronic effect a little bit less, to be honest.
Can you, just for people that like haven't read the
Yeah.
article yet, can you just say what like the chronic effect is and what
Yeah,
that
sure.
difference is? Yeah.
Yeah, so the acute effect actually describes that when you're doing multiple sessions on a day, that then that second session, maybe the quality is a little bit less because of the fatigue from the earlier session. And the chronic effect is actually more about the adaptation process after the training. So there,
Mhm.
the idea would possibly be that if you do a strength workout and after that you would do some easy conditioning, that the adaptation process of that strength workout will decrease because of that conditioning after. And like I said, that acute effect, so doing multiple sessions on a day, you do of course really want to think that you have a high quality in both those sessions. But I don't believe very much that doing a little bit of easy conditioning after some strength work will really decrease that adaptation for strength. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
hope that explains it. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's great. Um, do you like as a triathlete, especially like you're quite dialed in with the fueling for your training and racing? Um, I guess is that something that you're focused on quite a lot, and also like, do you take on fuel during a race or during your training sessions?
Um, yeah, it is something I focus on a lot, and especially even more since I now started doing more hours. So yeah, more carbs is there the key in my opinion. Um, and I start eating during my workouts when a workout is longer than 90 minutes. If it's shorter than that, then yeah, of course you need to have a good meal before your workout. Um, but then you can manage 90 minutes, in my opinion, without a problem. But then, of course, after the session, you want to eat as fast as possible to make sure you recover as quickly as possible so you can train as possible again. Um, and yeah, then so especially when I go on like longer bike rides. So in again January, February, I try to do like two longer bike rides of around 3 to 4 hours. Yeah, and then I'm really like eating like 60 to 90 grams of carbs an hour. And that's not something I'm looking forward to. So that's really like I having the timer in front of me, and every 30 minutes I know like, okay, it's time to take another. It's just something you do, but not something I really enjoy, to be honest, because after a while you get sick of all those gels and stuff. Um, and during races, I always carry a gel with me, but I don't always take it. So that's yeah, an effort for an hour is a little bit that in between time. Like, yeah, it can help, but it's not really necessary. Um, Sometimes I only do like during a race, I do like mouth rinsing. So then you actually don't swallow it, but you just have it in your mouth because only having like carbohydrates in your mouth is already enough to give your body a stimulus. Like, okay, it's okay, the carbs are coming. Um, but I yeah, it's a little bit I do that a little bit by feeling, and not every race is the same. Funny enough, with doubles, I actually do it almost all the time, but there you of course have those rest periods, so then it's way easier to, for instance, at the row, when my partner is doing 500 meters of rowing, you stand there for at least 1.5 minutes. Yeah, that's a perfect timing to take something in. But when you're doing a solo race, yeah, there are sometimes just moments where you're not into the mood for it.
Yeah, yeah. Would you like you work with clients? Is there a time that if someone's taking more than 75 minutes, for example, in a HYROX, or more than 90 minutes, is there a time where you think no, it is worth it for you to be taking on gels in a race?
Yeah, I think if you would go longer than 80, especially 90, but already at 80 minutes, I would advise to take it every time. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay. And on maybe like sort of similar subject, like you've talked about quite high volume, like you go for 3 or 4 hour bike rides, but you're working with clients, and not all of those can put in those sort of hours into their training. So how would you adjust their training for that? Is there more intensity in someone's training plan, for example, if they're doing 10 hours a week as opposed to 20? Do you up the intensity in that occasion?
Yeah, definitely. So actually the way I look at it, the like a really famous it's called like the intensity distribution actually. So it's like the 80-20 rule from Steven Seiler. And he had like a really influential article and book about that 80% for endurance athletes, 80% of your work should be easy and 20% should be hard. But even if you look at like the real elite athletes, they even do it more like 90-10. So 90% of real easy work and 10% really hard. And in my opinion, when you start, because that's for elite athletes who are triathletes, sometimes do like 30 hours, cyclists as well. But when you're not an elite and not putting that kind of hours, then in my opinion, you should not hold the same ratio, but you should shift it a little bit towards 70-30 or maybe even 60-40. So for clients who are doing some less hours, it's definitely, I think, a good solution to do a little bit more high intensity stuff.
Okay.
And
Okay.
maybe even because 90-10 sounds like oh, that's really low amount, but if you're training 30 hours a week, then it's still 3 hours of really intense work. So it's still and if you start to look at from that way, if somebody is training 6 hours a week and you would take that 3 hours, then it would suddenly become 50-50, but the amount of intense work is the same.
Yeah.
So I think that's it's of course uh, really good to look at the elite athletes, but at the same time, you should know that you're not an elite athlete, so you shouldn't copy and paste it, but you should take the lessons from it and try to blend it into your own sessions.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great point. Like you hear 80-20, especially talked about quite a lot, but 80-20 for someone that's doing 6 hours a week is maybe not appropriate because they might
Yeah,
not.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about mindset, like where your mind goes during a race. Do you, yeah, where does your mind go when things are getting tough?
Um, yeah, so normally I start and it's really different. It's not the same every time, to be honest. But most of the times I start to think about periods like sporting experience where I really suffered, or training sessions, or moments where I needed to work really late and then still had to do a session really late in the evening, which are not the most fun, but you do it because you want to achieve that goal. So it's more, I will start remembering maybe the sacrifices and the hard times and thinking like this is where you did it all for. So that's something that I bring up a lot when I'm really struggling.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can relate to that. I've done that sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, one of the questions we often finish up on is like, what is your toughest sporting experience? So like, let's go straight to that. After that, is there anything that springs to mind there?
Yeah, definitely. Because just before I started with my triathlon career, my sister was already a member of the triathlon club, and every year around May, they went to Limburg. It's where HYROX Maastricht is. And I don't know if people know it, but that's more a hilly part of the Netherlands. So you have like all these climbs, and you do like 5 minutes uphill and then shortly downhill, and that's the whole way. It's like that profile. And with that triathlon club, they went to do like a cycling round of 110 kilometers, and then also from the start to the campsite and back. So in total, it was like 130 kilometers. And for 2 years, I went with them to the campsite, but I was still too young, and they went cycling, and I didn't join them because I also didn't do triathlon. But I had like a really shit day always because they were all gone and having fun and coming back with all those stories. So when I was 15, I was like, I want to come with you with the bike ride. But my parents and my sisters told me like, yeah, but you never sit on a bike. And no, but I'm gonna train and I'm gonna make it. So when I was 15, I did like 2 bike rides, one of 30 kilometers and one of 50 kilometers. Yeah, on like the flat roads, and then we went to Limburg for the hilly parcours. And then I had to do like 130 Ks on a mountain bike while all those people were on road bikes. And I also didn't know too much about carb intake and stuff like that. So after like 90, 100 kilometers, I was really messed up. So and you could also see like my face, it was like as white as snow, and I just was struggling to even cycle like 10 kilometers an hour. And those last 2 hours were like, it was brutal. But at the same time, a really good lesson, because then you are 15 and then you think like, but how do other people do that? And then you notice like, oh, they take way more carbs, and I think I should train more. And so it was a really tough experience, but I look back on it with a big smile on my face. So
Do you know the answers to that question are often where someone's gone into something like very like long like that, like completely unprepared for it,
yeah,
and I wonder sometimes if that separates like some of these elite people from the general population who might just almost like not be that stupid to go into something. They say no, I'm not ready for it, and they say no to everything. Whereas like the more elite mindset is like just say yeah, give it a go, and then find out. You know.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's and it's also something I still try to do a little bit more prepared, but um like for instance on the 1st of January now I did like a 200K bike ride on Swift, so that's indoor. And a week after I did like a 10K swim in the pool. So that also took me like 3 hours. So there is like I don't do it whole year round, but I still try to do sometimes those things to just experience what real fatigue is and to push my boundaries a little bit.
Do you think that helps you in HYROX? Like when HYROX
Yeah,
is only an hour, for example?
and not directly, so not from like a physiological
No.
point of view, but way more from a mental point of view. Because, for instance, that 200K bike ride indoor was also like really shit. But then when you're having a tough moment, then that's one of the moments I think back on. Like, yeah, you sat on the bike for 6 hours in your garage. You can manage this as well, I think. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
helps definitely. Yeah.
Okay. How about your best sporting experience?
Yeah, that's really, I think I had like one triathlon where I was 18, and there that was the first time it was a sprint distance, so that's like 20K on the bike and a 5K run. Uh, but that was the first triathlon and actually the only triathlon that I won, not in my age category, but overall. Um, and there I felt like so I felt really strong, but especially I came like fifth out of the water and then third from the bike. And then with the running, I was catching up to the athletes who were number one and two. And it was like not winning was there the best part, but I really felt that I was racing. And that was like one of the first times in my life that I really experienced it in such a way. And that really was a big moment for me, not because it was an important race or it's not my best performance from the last 10 years, but that really was something like, oh, I like racing. I like it so much, and I'm willing to put so many hours in it just to experience the race again. So that was like one of my best sport experiences.
Okay, nice. Um, what's the best piece of advice someone's given you or you've discovered while training for HYROX?
Yeah, so I think like the most important thing always is that you have consistency in training and in the things you do around that. So, and that's sleep and nutrition. Um, and if you have that in order, then you already won like 95% of the battle. So that's by far the most important thing. But if I um maybe people are more curious to hear what I did different from like yeah, what are those extra 5% what I did from like Nice to now. And that's in terms of HYROX, that I think if you look at the elites now, that they all also doing a lot of volume but also quite a lot of specificity. And I think in terms of HYROX you need to find a way to structure that specificity in such a way that you are not running out of energy or not overtraining, like I, for instance, did at the end of 2024. But you do need that volume at the same time because HYROX is a volume game. So I would really encourage to experiment for people, like experiment for yourself how you can ramp up the specificity without running out of energy or getting injured. Um, and yeah, you can experiment in a lot of different ways, like which exercises do I pick, which exercise do I go a little bit harder on the ergs in my training, or a little bit slower on the ergs and a little bit harder on the run, and or a little bit slower on the run. Um, so I would encourage to experiment with those kind of training sessions to find a way for yourself to ramp up the specificity without getting injured or overtrained.
Okay. I guess that kind of goes back. You were earlier when we were talking about the running training earlier, and you said like sometimes you do like faster running intervals and then stations, but like a little bit slower, and you kind of mix that up. It's like
Yeah.
finding that balance, but still getting the specificity, but not necessarily like it's not at HYROX pace all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And because that's what in like a lot of earlier races for HYROX, then you got like a sort of sensation during the race where I thought like, oh, I never experienced this before. And in Barcelona was one of the first races where during the whole race, like for instance, that sled push was heavy, and also at the farmer carry, I noticed like, oh, I'm getting it a little bit heavy. But I never in the race had a moment where I thought like, oh, I haven't experienced this before in a training session. And that was, I think, like one of the most important things that I noticed from Barcelona, that the way I train now is in a way where it really paid off in the races because I experienced all those sensations before.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. What's the plan between now and Chicago?
Yeah, so first London with Cherry, and then we of course also have HYROX Heerenveen, and there I'm gonna do a fun double with two friends of mine. So that's more like also we're a training session, and then I'm also going to Berlin. I'm gonna do an open there to work a little bit on my speed. So I want to do. I'd want to do a solid race, but I picked out a few exercises where I really want to go really fast. And then I think I have like 3 or 4 weeks left. So then it will just be a little bit of training, and then I hope to travel 10 days before the race towards Chicago to give myself enough time to work on jet lag and acclimatization and stuff like that. Yeah, so that will be the plan.
Do you have any targets for the Elite 15 race, like in your mind?
Uh, yeah, like I I find it always really difficult, but I would like to be I don't know the proper but in the left table. So you have like 15 people, so I hope to be top 7 to say like I'm in at the better half. Uh, but at the same time, like there are athletes there who are stronger than me. Like that's the honest truth. But I think if I have like a really good day and I can work on a couple of points that I at the same time can make it really tough for some people at that race. And I still don't know how the qualification system for next year will be for the majors. But now with the time in Barcelona, and if it's again, if you need 2 races for qualification, then setting a really fast time will also potentially help me a lot for next year. So that can also be something that plays in my head, but I'm still not sure what my tactic will be because also a part in my head is like, maybe you will never experience this before and just go out full gas, full risk and see where you end up. So that could also still be a possibility.
Get some camera time on that first run.
Definitely, definitely. And the ski is a pretty good exercise for me, so I know that I can get a good time over there.
Okay. Are you happy with like the setup for the qualification? Like you just touched on like 2 fastest times and that type of stuff. Are you happy with the setup, or do you want to see some changes?
Yeah, I think this system is still not perfect, and you're never gonna find a perfect system. But yeah, the hard or the difficult thing with being qualifying based on time is that, yeah, there's still differences between courses. And that's, of course, really difficult, especially if you go somewhere and you want to set a good time. But if you already see from races before you like, oh, it's probably not a fast course, then the race is maybe already a little bit ruined for you. So I I think qualification based on time is not ideal, but at the same time, I don't have a other really good alternative at this moment. And I also, because I do know that some people maybe disagree with that you get a spot for the majors if you end up at the podium for the World Championships or if you end up at the podium of the majors. But I actually disagree with that. I do believe that you should be that you can get rewarded for having a really good race at the World Championships or the majors. And of course, you can, a race of 9 months ago, there are maybe people better, but I believe that those races you should be, get a reward for racing really well over there. So that's for me not a problem, to be honest. But maybe make it a little bit more open and a little bit easier for some people who are not in the majors and not in the elites in that circuit. I think that would be a good step, especially because the sport is growing so fast and you see that so many good athletes are showing up to different races. I think that would be a good step.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for this. It's been
Yeah.
brilliant. Congratulations again for what you did in Barcelona.
Yeah.
Good
Thanks a
good
lot.
luck for London. If people want to follow you, find out more about you, do coaching as well, right?
Yeah, but
Where
I'm
should they go?
full. So please,
Okay.
but I'm gonna change my structure. But from the next season, I will give some news about that. But one-on-one coaching, sadly, I have no room left. No.
Okay. But if people want to follow you, is it
Yeah,
Instagram the best place to go?
yeah. Instagram is the best place. I do try to get a little bit more active. Um, and I also try to reply to everyone who sends a message. Usually uh, it works, but after last weekend, I still need to catch up a little bit. But yeah, so that's the best place, and it's just my name, and then you will find it yourself. So that's no problem at all.